Last Sunday at 4 a.m., I laid in bed completely unable to sleep. And going and staying asleep has never been a problem for me. I run real hard all day long, and I crash really hard at the end of the day. And I'm not a morning person. I start moving right about 9:30. School starts at 10. And our goal is to be out of our pajamas by 10. So, but there I was, 4 o'clock in the morning and absolutely wide awake. And so why? So this picture that Zoe's about to put up there actually is the best example of summing up why I was awake and it says pause in the middle of my head. There we go. I'm a turkey. Or better yet, a chicken. I just don't have a picture of me in a chicken costume, so we had to go with turkey. Tonight I'm going to talk basically for myself. And if you guys are able to glean anything from it, then more power to you. That's just icing on the cake. As a little background, let's rewind almost 3 years ago. My husband Zoe, who's on the front row, and I were having some major marital problems. The kind that most marriages don't survive. As I stood looking over the edge of the canyon that was the end of my marriage, my world came crashing down. Everything I had based my worth on, my significance on, came crashing down around me. I realized that I had built for myself what I thought was the perfect life. I was the smiling wife, the attentive mom, homeschool mom. I was active at church. Everything I thought that made me who I was. And to keep up, I was perfect, almost. And I made sure that I stayed that way. In order to keep up that facade and keep up my perfection, I did many different things. For instance, I was very, very careful not to speak in front of groups because I might mess up. And you guys might realize I'm not perfect. I never performed. I never prayed aloud in church, anywhere. I never performed in any way, shape, or form. Anytime I took any type of class, when it was time for a performance, I would drop the class immediately. Whether it be piano, when the recital came, I dropped out of piano. I actually, should tell you this, but I actually took a belly dancing class in college, and when it was time to do the end show, I dropped out of belly dancing. Which is probably a good thing. But anyway, most everything that I had created within myself was a huge facade. So what would become of me if I lost it all? If I lost my marriage, if I lost my homeschooling, because I'd have to go back to work, all of the things that made me matter, so I thought. I became depressed and for a short time suicidal, and then God stepped in. He chose to save our marriage, to make it an example of what He can do with the messes we create. And He made me take a deep, long look at myself. I realized through 2 years of counseling, lots of Bible study and prayer, and some tough love with myself, that I do matter. Not because of who I'm married to, and not because of what kind of mother I am, but because of whose child I am. I am a child of the Most High God. And I can say today, if I should lose it all, my marriage, my home, my kids, it would be horrible. It would be absolutely horrible. But I would make it. I couldn't have told you that 3 years ago. So what in the world does this have to do with the Tea Party? You guys are like, what is this? It's like a strange AA meeting. Okay. What does this have to do with the Tea Party movement? Let's fast forward to last April. These past 10 months with the Tea Party movement have been a roller coaster of emotions for me. My first emotion, nervousness, obviously, back in April. What the heck am I doing? I just pulled out a permit for 200 people planning a tea party. I don't speak in front of people at all. Never have. I don't. I vomit every time. I can't even talk in front of 200 people, but I pulled out a permit anyway. Then the next emotion was elation, because I counted close to 1,000 on the courthouse lawn on April 15th. I shook through the entire thing, as I'm doing right now. However, I was scared to death, but I also felt on top of the world. I made it. I did it. And I didn't vomit, not even once. I promise. And as the weeks wore on, the feeling that we as a movement were a force to be reckoned with, I was encouraged by the 912 group. This group right here, it started so strong. We had over 100 people at the first 2 meetings. And wow, I was riding on the clouds. Nothing could stop us. The whole movement, we were going. Nothing was going to stop us. And then cap and trade came. When it passed the House, I was absolutely heartbroken. I remember distinctly being on my knees next to my bed, crying out for God to step in, intervene for this country. And I watched the votes live on the laptop next to my bed as I cried. And I was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. I was ready to give up. I had been on this great high. I wanted to throw in the towel. Looking back now, I realized that the cap and trade passing was honestly the lowest point for me. After a lot of encouragement from Zoe, I decided to go ahead with the 4th of July Tea Party, which was only a week away at that point. I was ready to just forget the whole thing. I'm just done. Look, we can't do anything. Look, cap and trade just went through. I'm so grateful that I didn't. I'm so grateful that I did the 4th of July Tea Party, because that day stirred within me a feeling of patriotism greater than I've ever felt in my 33 years at the time. Love for country, for the veterans, and for the people that are fighting now. It was an amazing day, and the amazing thing that they've given us in this life that we have in America. And then, as we saw government health care stumble through the town halls over the summer, I began to hope again. I got excited. And then on the clouds, high again, we marched on September 12th through Washington, 1 million strong. Through the streets of Washington, D.C., such a pride for country, for those of us who marched, for those of us who couldn't but stayed home and prayed for us. I am not alone. I felt so strong that day. Wow. Then we had the excitement of New Jersey and Virginia, coupled with the frustration of New York 23. And then the healthcare mess. It reared its ugly head again. I was discouraged when I was told by my dad that my drive to D.C. again was only an emotional response, and it was not well thought out. Indignation set in as I drove anyway. When Zoe was in Switzerland, I drove back, got in a car all by myself, and drove up to Washington, and stood with another 40,000 people and said, you know, I'm here anyway. It won't do me any good, but I'm going to stand here right now, tonight. I knew that it would have little or no impact, but it was the right thing to do. And now, to be honest with you, I'm resigned to the fact that phone calls aren't working, but I must keep making them. And marches aren't doing enough, but I can't stop now. Determination is set in at this point. I must make a difference. So here I stand tonight, 10 months later, and looking back over these months, I've realized something. It is so much easier for me to fight the big, bad, faceless bullies in D.C. than it is the people in Rutherford County. To make phone calls to some faceless aide, to some faceless senator's office that I see on TV, to write an email that couples with the tens of thousands of others they receive and don't read. Time-consuming, yes. Difficult? No, it's really not. But this is where we come back to the picture of me from earlier, the turkey/chicken. And as nervous as this makes me, I'm going to be very real with you. I would rather use the word transparent, but it's way too used now and doesn't mean much, so I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to be real. I am just one small person in this movement. There are many more that have fought harder. Many of you are sitting here tonight that have fought harder, sacrificed more, and gone on a lot longer than I have. But recently, I've had a letter to the editor written about me in the newspaper. I was called out by a commissioner in the middle of last month's meeting, and I apparently unintentionally picked a fight with some strong forces in local politics. And I'm a chicken. You know what? I actually told Zoe the other night that I'm hoping for one of my kids to get sick so that I don't have to go to the upcoming commissioner's meeting. I made a promise not to tell anybody, so I'm going to stand here and tell y'all. I want to be liked, even when I act tough. I must admit that my heart is closer to that of a turkey than that of a lion, and I don't lose well. As a matter of fact, I never go into something that I have a chance of losing, which happens to be a lot of things in these political fights. This is new for me. I try to protect myself at all times from anything or anyone thinking that I am stupid. Basically, it boils down to I want to be liked. Plain and simple. But like Margaret Thatcher once said, if you set out to be liked, you should be prepared to compromise on anything at any time, and you will achieve nothing. This fight is not about people liking Jennifer Nascoff. If it is, we are in serious trouble. Now, 2010 is fast approaching, and I believe it's a turning point for the Tea Party movement and for our country. This is where we draw a line in the sand, and we are not going to cross it. The other side knows that we're going to come out fighting next year. They know that we have truth on our side. So what do they fight back with when they don't have the truth? They fight back with smears and personal attacks. Anything we've dealt with in the last 10 months is going to be small potatoes in 2010. So what will I do? I will continue to fight for God and fight for country. I will go to meetings that I'm scared to death of going to. I will do what is right when I'm on top of the world and when I'm in the depths of despair. And I got emotional anyway. All right. I will remember I am a child of the Most High God. I will continue to work on getting tougher skin, but constantly cautious of that toughness becoming bitterness or callousness. I will remember to fight back with truth and not be dragged into personalities and name-calling. That's hard for me, because I'm usually pretty quick-witted, so I can come back with things. But I need to remember not to come back with truth. I will realize and accept that some things will have to be put on the back burner next year. Vacations, ministries, having the perfect homeschool, so that time and money and energy can be put into this fight.